Hello and welcome to Four Wheels Good. We're the first motoring programme in Britain to be on air throughout the year, covering every facet of four-wheel transport. Coming up over the next few weeks, we have full coverage of the Paris and British international motor shows. We'll cover all the major model releases, technical innovations, classic cars and in-car entertainment. But it's not just about cars. These days, transport is a political issue. Are the construction companies, multinational car manufacturers and environmental lobbies telling us all we need to know to make sensible decisions about the future? Tonight, Ginny Buckley will be at Gaydon driving the revamped series of Minis. We'll find out what really goes on behind the scenes at a classic car auction. And we'll introduce the irrepressible motoring journalist Mike Rutherford. Also every week we hear exclusively from the legendary Stirling Moss. But first, a concept model that was so well received at the Geneva show in '94, Ford took the plunge to actually produce it. Peter Baker reports on the new car called the New Car.
They say necessity is the mother of invention. The Mini was created after the Suez crisis, forced petrol rationing and created the need for a small economic car. Everyone from the police to posers took to the tiny triumph of engineering. Later in the programme we'll look at the latest revamps on the original design of the Mini. But now the time is right for the launch of a completely new small vehicle, the Ford Car. Today, there are different necessities that demand small vehicles. We now have widespread urban congestion and people with lifestyles which demand many shorter car journeys rather than a few long ones. There are more second-car households and families are getting smaller. The prototype of the car was first shown off at the 1994 Geneva show as a concept car. It was so well received that Ford decided to produce it and keep the name.
We felt that a smaller car, a lighter car, a more fuel-efficient car would be more appropriate to the social needs of the 1990s and the early next century. You can have fun, enjoy driving a car and owning a car with a lot of personality and very high levels of functional integrity. At the same time, the car is environmentally responsible, it's compatible with congested urban situations, and its emissions are lower than any car we've ever produced in mass production in Europe. Just because you've got a small car doesn't mean you have to have a small car experience, a traditional small car experience. We can confer to a small car some of the attributes of larger cars: safety, quietness, comfort, and so forth.
Usually the time from concept car to production model creates a watered-down design as conservative executives impress their opinions on each feature. Amazingly, the flair of the original design still survives.
We were free to design the car. There was no replacing an existing vehicle, there was not a facelift, so we have had a very clean sheet of paper in front of us, and we thought that for this new entry, new level, we should design something with a lot of personality, with plenty of elegance, and we find out that by working the sculpture and the graphic, that it was the most appropriate way to do it.
But is the market ready for a vehicle that looks so revolutionary?
We wanted a vehicle that really signaled a new era of design for Ford, both in terms of exterior design and interior design. We felt it was time for us to establish that era with a physical, visible product.
Well, Ford invited Men and Motors to test drive the new baby car for ourselves. So where in the world would they send us? Somewhere that's perfectly designed to test out the capabilities of a new urban car designed to cope with today's traffic jams. Of course, the beautiful holiday environment of Sardinia. But when we got the car to hit the island's tarmac at speed, we realised the reason. This is no urban shoebox on wheels, which is only good for crawling rush hour queues, hunting for parking meters. This is a small car with attitude, and that attitude is eager. Eager to drive and eager to please.
I think they've got it right in every respect, except as I said, I'm just a little bit concerned about the powertrain. She runs out of puff in fifth, and she can run out of puff in fourth. First, second and third, whacking it up through the gears, not bad at all, terrific.
I thought it was a super little car. It actually looks good. It's got a very cute look. It looks as if it should be a very sporty car, and it handles superbly, which makes you think it's the sporty car, but unfortunately it hasn't got the oomph that makes it a sporty car, but it's great, it's brilliant.
I think they've done a good job on it. It's something that's certainly an eye-catching one. It looks a bit like a concept car to start with, but it's a concept car they've put into development, and I think it's the sort of thing that's going to sell for a limited market.
We actually believe it's going to create a class of its own. Within the B segment, which is fragmenting, you've got vehicles which are stylish but haven't necessarily got good driving dynamics, and vehicles such as the Fiesta, which are good looking but have also got excellent driving dynamics. We believe this vehicle is going to create its own segment where it's got style and substance.
The headlamp and the bonnet line, not just a rounded form but a mixture of curved surfaces, very sharp intersections and very interesting graphics. If you look at the shape of the vehicle, very aerodynamic shape, and take the roof for example. Instead of flattening the roof out, what we've done is follow the aerodynamic teardrop, and actually that increases the headroom for the driver. The width for the driver is the same as Fiesta, so a very spacious environment for the driver. The most challenging part of the development for the engineers, undoubtedly the safety. Inherently challenging task with a small vehicle to bring it up to the safety standard of larger cars. One interesting aspect is the way we've managed the crumple zone. We not only use the engine in front of the area in front of the engine for energy absorption, but we also use the area behind the engine. Normally a lot of vehicles use just the area in front, and therefore that leads to a very long front end.
There'll be two models, Car and Car 2. Both have a 1.3 engine, but Car 2 offers more equipment. Diesel and auto models are not planned as yet. The car's prices will be announced in a few weeks' time and will be on sale after the NEC show. This vehicle represents not just a huge upping in style and design stakes, but a new way of car conception.
It was a great team effort because the team members from engineering and planning and manufacturing and finance and all over the company, purchasing, were very much involved. And we didn't want this to be a new car only. We wanted it to be a new way of developing cars and bringing cars to the marketplace.
Peter Baker in Sardinia with a new Ford car. Now let me introduce you to Mike Rutherford, a regular contributor to Four Wheels Good. We've read your opinions on everything from Auto Express to The Economist to News of the World, Mike. You're going to be working on the show in the next few weeks. What kind of topics are you going to be covering?
You name it, we'll cover it. Everything from buying cars to selling cars. The important things that are often forgotten: insurance, finance, servicing. We'll be taking a very, very close look at the police and what they're doing to motorists with all their fixed cameras and all the rest of it. And we'll also be having a lot of fun. And of course, we'll be having a pop at those car manufacturers occasionally if they deserve it.
Absolutely. So the sort of topics that are going to affect the ordinary man or woman in the street, basically.
Well, the sort of topics that you can't afford to clue yourself up on. And if other people aren't telling you, we will.
Absolutely. Right. Now then, your first report took you to Cologne, I understand. A few clues?
Well, I mean, I'm getting a bit cynical about car launches because I've been on too many, but I've got to say that this one I've just come back from, the launch of the new Porsche Boxster in Germany, was one I don't think I'll ever forget. You don't often get motoring journalists putting their hand in their pocket spending money, but if I had 35 grand to spend, I can honestly say that this would be the car that my money would go on.
Let's see more of that. It's Mike Rutherford in Cologne with the new Porsche Boxster.
This one was worth waiting for. It's the first genuinely new Porsche for 18 years, and it's a real bargain at a mere £35,000. But it's unmistakably 100% pure Porsche, a real porky with classic design cues and styling that's as good as the 911s. And who better to tell us more than Porsche's chief designer?
Starting off with a clean sheet of paper for us designers is, of course, the ideal start for such a project. We from the design department of Porsche always have loved to do such a car. So when the project started, we actually had quite a lot of ideas up our sleeve, and therefore we were quite prepared to do the Boxster.
What was the idea in mind? Obviously, you'd completely blown out the idea of having this as a four-seater, a 2+2. It's strictly a two-seater roadster. I mean, yes. Who do you have in mind? Do you sit there with your ideal customer, your ideal prospective buyer in mind when you sit down and pen a car like this?
No, it's based on our strategy that we will have 2 sports cars in our range, one with a mid-engined layout and one with a rear-engined layout. And the one with the mid-engined layout is the one in which I'm sitting right now, the Boxster, with pretty much a very exciting interior, as you can see, where we brought in some new design features based around some very traditional and strong features of which Porsche is so well known of, like the instruments, as you see here. The instruments on the 911 play a very important role in its interior design. And as you see on the Boxster, this is a new interpretation. The 3 instruments which the Boxster has are moved into each other, so you can see them very well, you can read them very well through the steering wheel.
In the past, it's been a complaint of some people that Porsche 911 interiors are almost agricultural. I mean, this is very deliberately, though, much more 1990s, isn't it? Still, though, I've got to say, and I congratulate you on it, with that Porsche feel, it's unmistakably a Porsche inside, although it's chalk and cheese, really, compared with the 911.
Yes. A design evolution of the 911 interior was actually executed in the 924, 944 and 968 models. That evolution has not been that strong that people saw it as the big step. Therefore, on the Boxster we did a larger evolution. And we brought in some new themes which will still be very modern in a lot of years from now.
The other point is, of course, that although it's unmistakably Porsche from the outside, although it's unmistakably new, it could never be mistaken for another version of the 911. It's very obviously a Porsche, very obviously not the 911, yes. But it's still got those Porsche traits. I mean, that's the art of it, isn't it?
Yes, that's the art which we think we are very good in doing. And as I said before, it's very important to find a design theme which is still going to be modern in 8 or even 10 years from now.
And of course the other point is that it could still look almost somehow just as stunning 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. If you think of something like a Porsche 356, still stunningly attractive and somehow a modern icon almost.
What you can see clearly here, this is actually the uprated version fitted with a lot of parts from our so-called exclusive program. And as you can see, many parts have been uprated in terms of visual impact or tactile impact. And this interior is made in such a way that we can replace particular parts in the future. And for instance, here you can see the instrument binnacle with its lovely bridge over it, making it even lighter looking by having this air slot above the instruments. You can clearly see that this instrument cluster could actually be changed in a couple of years from now if necessary. Also, other parts are shown and which are based on the same design concept are the middle console, the door panels. We can see steps, design evolutionary steps being executed in these areas in the next years.
If I had £35,000 to spend, do you think it might be a wise bet to actually get one of these, seal it up in a large cellophane bag and maybe keep it in a garage for 20, 30 years, wheel it out in 3 decades' time and become a millionaire?
No, I don't think so. I think you should buy it as soon as you can, enjoy it as much as you can, and as it is, because I think in many respects, from a design point of view, from a technical point of view, it's miles ahead of the competition, and therefore why not enjoy it at this moment?
What you're looking at here is a classic of today and the future. The great thing about this car is that it's relatively cheap. For the price of $1,911, you can buy a Boxster for yourself and another Boxster for the wife, the mistress, your mum, your au pair, your grandma.
Rather tasty, I'm sure you'll agree. Next week, Mike Rutherford, along with the editor of What Car magazine, will be reporting from the Paris Motor Show with some important new models unveiled, as well as many concept car talking points. After the break, the Renault 50 concept car and Stirling Moss. Welcome back. As we saw with the Ford car, the motoring industry is abuzz with concept cars. Here's one French concept that won't make the showrooms, but the Renault 50 is eye-catching, has innovative use of materials and is very stylish.
The Renault 50 combines the needs of the 90s with romantic styling from the 40s and 50s. Renault's design director agrees that this concept car has its roots in motoring history.
It's an anniversary car because it's based very closely from a stylistic standpoint on the famous 4 chevaux, which was famous in France in any case, which was the car just like the Beetle was in Germany, and I'm not sure that perhaps the Morris Minor in Great Britain as the car that put France on wheels 50 years ago, and we just couldn't let that anniversary go by and celebrate it, and possibly also show, although there are some links with the famous 4 chevaux, that how the automobile had changed in 50 years.
Isn't it strange that in car promotional videos the sun always shines? But it's a good excuse to show off the huge sunroof on this Renault concept car.
Well, certainly the whiskers at the front, probably the overall proportion of the vehicle, although the 4 chevaux was always a 4-seater, 4-door. And then the other stylistic element is the rear end with the slotted air outlets. This car is not in fact a rear engine, but it's a mid-engine. Having said that, the air does actually go through the slats of the rear end. Another very important trend for the future in the automobile, which we're trying to show here, is the evolution that we're going to find in the use of materials in cars, borrowing heavily on the home and furniture design. We've used such thing as linoleum, and we've used linen, wickerwork, and also a range of colors, materials which are not the traditional plastics, but which are quite autonomous from the automobile culture, and I think that's a welcome sight.
So, what else is there to do with a car with such romantic styling? Of course, call up your partner. Pack a picnic basket which oh so conveniently fits in the tiny boot, although dried flowers wouldn't be my first choice for lunch. Adjust the steering, dash, pedals, and cruise off into the French Campagna.
This morning with the president of Renault, and the same question was asked, and he said, oh, absolutely not. And I turned to him and said, is that your last word? And he said, yes. So I guess, no, we're not going to produce it.
of those. It's a shame you can't buy one. Yet, anyway. Now then, you only have to walk into Stirling Moss's London home to realise, by the amount of trophies and commemorative memorabilia around, that motor racing is still a very large part of his life. It was Stirling's misfortune that he was so often pitted against Fangio, perhaps the world's greatest racing driver. In another era, today perhaps, he would almost certainly have been a world champion. As it is, he'll be remembered as one of the greatest crowd pleasers the sport has ever produced. His enthusiasm for racing is undimmed, and he is as outspoken as ever. We're delighted that he'll be joining us on Four Wheels Good each week. Tonight, he and Mike Rutherford talk Formula One.
Stirling Moss, there's one man that everybody's talking about in Britain at the moment, and that's the #1 Formula One driver in Britain, our very own Damon Hill.
Yeah.
What's your verdict on Damon?
I reckon that Damon is the second best to Michael Schumacher. A long way down, but I do think he's the best English guy. I think he's had really done quite a good year. He's not aggressive enough, which is shown, I think, through the whole season. But I think that he's in with a good chance of pulling it off, frankly, because he's only got to sit back and relax to do it.
You say that he's not in the same league as Michael. I mean, how close is he? We have Schumacher up there on that level.
Long way.
How close behind are the likes of Damon? And I presume you have the same opinion of Damon as you do of the likes of Hakkinen and Lacey.
And Gerhard Berger and so on. They're all down here, and Michael's right up there, and in the way that Senna was. I mean, Ayrton Senna was way up, and then you came down, and you've got the Michael Schumachers. Now we've got to change position where Michael's gone right up, and I really think that this year, I think Damon's been driving quite well, but not aggressively enough. Villeneuve, on the other hand, has been going like a bomb and done a great job. Whether he will beat him in the last race is something that we won't know till the time arrives, but it has to be I think he'll be out there to do it. But what worries me more than anything else, frankly, is Damon going to sit back and go for 1 point or 2 points, which will be boring. It's not racing. But having said that, the intelligent thing for Damon to do, obviously, is to sit away from everybody, not get near anybody, and just consolidate and be the world champion.
Isn't his problem that he's not a racing driver? He's quick.
He's a racing driver, but not a racer.
Right.
That's the difference. I mean, they're all racing drivers, but to me, the guys that are exciting. I mean, Nigel, in his own way, he was a racer. He'd get in there and he'd have a go. And obviously, Ayrton and Michael Schumacher and so on. But there are very, very few racers around. I mean, ever since I started racing, there have hardly been any real racers.
So can we conclude, when we look back at Damon's career, which, let's not forget, might be coming to an end at the end of the 1996 season, the way it's looking.
Could be.
Who knows? Can we conclude that he's a very fast driver when he's got a circuit to himself, when he's testing, when he's got nobody in front of him, but when it comes to being a racer, when it comes to taking
the infighting,
and the back markers come to that, slicing through the field several times in the case of some of the down market drivers, that's where his downfall is.
Yeah, because he goes out and he can get pole position. He can do that quite easily. But when there are others there, I think he's overly cautious to be a racer. It's one of those things. It's difficult to explain when you're in a motor car. There's a big responsibility. A, for your life, obviously. B, is the car, the team, everybody behind you, and it takes a particular character, which I don't think Damon has, to sort of say, okay, I'm going to go. If you see a gap that's nearly big enough, you've got to go in there and make it. And I'm afraid that Damon's sort of the person who unfortunately waits until it is big enough and says, okay, now I'll go, because he has the ability, but not the attackness.
And there'll be more from our legend of the track next week. Well, now a quick look at some of the news stories around this week. Do you drive on bus lanes to beat the queues? Cameras on buses are going to be used for the first time to catch and prosecute drivers who use bus lanes illegally. Transport Secretary Sir George Young has unveiled plans to introduce bus-mounted and roadside cameras. The cameras will be in operation at first in North London on stretches of the A10 and A1. So don't say we didn't warn you. The new Seat Inca has been voted Best Light Van of 1996 by What Van magazine. The judges in particular were impressed by the well-designed cab and load area, as well as the 3-year warranty unique to vans in that class. And Citroën have launched a new van with driving capabilities they claim is as good as a car. The Berlingo, developed at a cost of £300 million, has fully independent suspension with twin anti-roll bars. It maximises load volume and includes a multifunctional passenger seat which converts into a desk. Walker Exhausts have launched a new premium exhaust system. The Aluminox range has been designed to last longer with a double metal skin to protect against corrosion. Using stainless and aluminised steel, the Aluminox range comes with a 2-year guarantee. After the break, how Rover has revamped the Mini for 97.
Cast your mind back a few years. John F. Kennedy has just been elected President of the United States. A secure wall is being built to divide East and West Germany. On the home front, aspiring politician Margaret Thatcher has just made it to Parliamentary Secretary. And this baby, the Mini Cooper, the car that really epitomises the swinging 60s, has just hit the streets. Yep, the Mini is nearly 40 years old.
Well, Rover seem to be working some more miracles. Everybody's talking about the death knell sounding for the Mini over and over again, but emissions laws and safety laws keep on creeping up on it. And Rover just seem to be keeping it ahead of the game. They've done it again. They fitted airbags and side impact beams to the car to keep it alive for a few more years.
I mean, 40 years, and almost 40 years, it's still going strong. That's an amazing track record. You've driven a lot of cars in your job with What Car magazine. What's the appeal of the Mini?
It's all about character these days, really. There's nothing else like it. There probably won't be anything quite like it, although there is supposed to be a new Mini coming out around the year 2000. And it is a design icon. That's what it is these days.
So what have they done with the range here today? We seem to have everything from the very basic original through to some fabulous looking Mini Coopers. Where are they taking it?
Well, they're really making it into a cult car, which is the way it was heading anyway. So now what you've got is just two cars, two platforms on which you can base your ideas and personalise it to your own taste. So you've got either the Cooper, which we're standing with here, or the basic 1.3 car, and you can specify all sorts of options: leather seats, and various stripes and decals down the side, and alloy wheels and sports kits. So you can really personalise your Mini these days.
Well, let's see how it's evolved over the last 40 years. Why don't we take one for a drive and see how it compares on the road with the 90s? Let's take a look under the bonnet.
Okay. There we go.
Wow.
It really is nothing short of amazing, the fact that Rover can actually fit so much in there. What they've done to the 97 model year Mini is to move the radiator to the front. It used to be around at the side slightly. They've also fitted a new engine management system, which helps it meet the latest EU emissions regulations, which come into force on the 1st of January. And also this October there are noise regulations, so it now meets that as well.
How many changes other than that are there to the engine from the original one that would have been bombing around in the 60s?
Very little. It's still an A-series engine, which was original in the Mini.
All right, Steve, your first drive of Mini 97, what are your initial impressions?
Well, actually, to drive, it's not an awful lot different to the old car. It's still just as much fun. You still get that seat of the pants feeling.
Yeah, the old Mini definitely didn't seem to have much inside, did it, in the way of equipment? How have they combated that this time?
Well, there's now a radio as standard.
Wow.
Praise the Lord. And they've also given you the option of specifying a wood dash, the chrome dials and extra dials, and you've got a wonderful chrome gear stick, which we'll have a look at in there in a little while, and chrome door handles and window winders. So it's really taking you back to the 60s ethos of the Mini, what it's all about.
And it comes with a classic 60s tape, does it, I hope?
I would hope so, yes, yeah. Have Van Morrison singing along in there somewhere or something.
So what kind of person drives the Mini? You know, who's going to look at this and think, yeah, it's the car for me?
It's very, very difficult. I mean, in years gone by, it's been a traditional first car for people, but I think you'll also find it now becoming a second car, a fun car for people to buy, as well as still a lot of people buying it for their first cars. But it's a lot more expensive now than it ever was. It's talking about £9,000, which is the basic car. So it has taken it away from the budget car area, which is so hotly contested now with things like the Fiat Cinquecento and the upcoming Ford car, of course. So it's becoming more of an icon, and apparently you're going to have to pay for that.
And of course, the insurance on the Mini, though, is still quite an appealing thing for first-time drivers, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Running costs are ridiculous. You know, you can work on them yourselves, but as you've seen, the engine is a little bit cramped in there.
nearly 40 years on and it's still going strong. How much further can Rover take it?
Well, I think that one of the reasons they've done this upgrade is to keep it legal, so to speak, so they can keep selling it. And there is, of course, talk of the year 2000 Mini, which Rover are almost on the verge of confirming, we think. So I think that they're keeping the Mini brand going, trying to enhance the image of the Mini for this new car that will come along at the turn of the decade.
In essence, it's the only classic car that you can actually go into the showroom and still buy today.
That's right, yeah, it is still one of the most famous classic cars. I think Classic and Sports Car voted it the best classic car of all time, and our sister magazine, Autocar, voted it Car of the Century. So, you know, to have one of those on your driveway that you can still go out and buy one new with a P plate on it, that's quite something special.
With me now is Fred Coultas, who's Managing Director of the British Motor Industry Heritage Group, and if that's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. Okay, Fred, this is your present title, but I believe you were involved not that many years ago with the initial design on the Mini.
Yeah, being very kind. 38 years ago.
Okay, well, you're wearing well. Like the Mini, you see.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I was involved in the very early days as a wide-eyed, newly qualified engineer working on the development of the front-wheel drive vehicles.
It must have been an incredibly exciting time. I mean, it's easy to look at the Mini today and think, oh yeah, great car, but there's a lot of great cars. But when you look at what was around at the time, did you all know you were onto something really special?
I think when you're lost in the depths of the engineering fraternity, you're not quite sure at that point in time. Yes, of course, it was something very special. It was brand new, it was innovative, full of all the pains that the innovative engineer brings with him.
What kind of problems did you encounter?
Oh, grief, how long have we got?
Briefly.
Oh, everything from...
What was the one? What was the nemesis?
Imagine moving from conventional motor cars into a situation where everything all of a sudden is under the bonnet. So we have a gearbox that's under the engine, the front wheels are driven by that same engine, it's swung round through 90 degrees, so it's now no longer north-south as an engine, it's east to west. It brought lots of problems with it, but as an engineer, that's what you enjoy.
We're here at the Heritage Motor Centre to take a look at the Mini 97, and I must say, Patrick, Mini 97 that we've seen outside, this could have been one of them, and I believe this is a very special Mini.
Absolutely, that's right. This is Mini number 1. This was built in 1959 on August the 28th. As you can see, we haven't changed the style very much. In all honesty, it's very difficult to change it without spoiling it, and we didn't want to change something that we consider to be absolutely perfect.
And an awful lot of people, an awful lot of drivers seem to think that as well.
Yes, very much so, very much so.
What kind of person drives a Mini? Who are you aiming at in the 90s?
The sort of person who drives a Mini is looking for something that's very different, who isn't looking for a run-of-the-mill small car. They're very individual, they want to make a statement about themselves, so they're not looking at something that's an ordinary small car, they're looking at something that's completely different to everything else, and that's something that we have in today's Mini.
Okay, so you haven't changed the styling an awful lot, but what are the differences in Mini 97?
Well, the main thing is that we've changed the Mini 97 are the safety features of the car. We've put in a standard driver's airbag, seatbelt pre-tensioners and side impact bars, and we've also improved a whole raft of other minor features in the car, such as having multi-point fuel injection, a new refinement package, and a lot of other minor features such as small revised seats, better ventilation system, and so forth. Really a lot of minor things with the car that really do improve the refinement considerably.
What about the Japanese market? I know the Mini is very popular over there, and looking at the size of it you can understand why.
Well, the sales in Japan support the Mini quite considerably. They account for something like 30 or 40% of Mini sales at the moment. So again, the sort of level of enthusiasm and the level of sales of Mini is very important to us.
Denis, you're Director of Communications here at Rover. So how does Mini fit into the Rover strategy?
Fits in perfectly. BMW Group now owns Rover Group, as you know, and in buying Rover, BMW bought into basically Rover Cars, the MG marque, the new sports car, and Land Rover. But we also have Mini, which has become established as a brand in its own right over the years. And that's the way we'll see Mini now going into the future, as a brand within the Rover Cars organisation.
Very tempting, but if nature had meant me to drive a Mini, I'd be a foot shorter. But I'm not, and I'm quite happy as a BMW man, thanks a lot. More legroom, you know. Later on in the programme, a weekly feature where we'll discover what people from all walks of life drive and why. But first, a glimpse behind the scenes of a classic car auction, where motors and memorabilia could be a gavel strike away from being yours.
Me, 3-5, any bids? £3,000 surely. 2,000 only bid, at £2,000. At 2,000 bid. At 2,000 only bid at 2,000. At £2,000 2-1. 2001, at 2,100, at 2001 at 2002, at 2002, 2003, at £2,300, at 2,300, at 2,003 only bid, at 2004, at 2004, at £2,400, at 2,400 then, take it away, at 2,400, at 2004, at 2,400 all done then at 2,400. At 2-4 only bid. At 2,400, take it away with a 2-4. Provisional bid, thank you.
Came down from Manchester State trying to sell my car at the Tatton Show auction. It didn't reach the reserve that I placed on the car. The reason I want to sell the car is to purchase a house, and I thought there'd be a good opportunity to try and sell it. I put a reserve in it of £6,000, but the bidding only reached £5,200. So at that point, the matter was over.
We came down here today to have a nice day out among the auto jumblers and the other nice cars that are on view, and so I thought at the present time I'm wanting to reduce my workload, so I thought I'd put my Bullnose Morris in the auction and see what sort of money it brought. And it was built in 1977 from templates made and received from New Zealand. This is the only 1920 Bullnose Morris which is running in the Bullnose Club.
£1,300 bid, at 13 bid, at 1,300, 14, 1,400, at £1,400, at 1,400 only bid, at £1,400, take it away then, 1,400, at £1,400, at 1,400 bid then at 1,400, at 1,400 all done then, at 1,400 only bid, at 1,400 only bid, take it away then at 14.
We've had a reasonably successful sale today on for a September sale. The summer's nearly over now. People are looking today to sell cars due to troubles with storage. We've sold approximately 50% of the cars today, either through the sale itself or negotiating sales afterwards. As you can see, we're still selling cars now through people coming back after the auction, having seen cars go through, been to have a walk around the show, as they often do, coming back to the auction later on. And we quite successfully closed deals right up until the end of the week.
The golden rule if you're thinking of selling at a classic auction is to valet, polish and make your vehicle look irresistible. And on the day, don't be too upset if your precious jewel doesn't reach the reserve. Be realistic and realise that luck plays a great part. The next auction could have you drowning in a sea of flapping checkbooks.
Gary Pearson is Head of Vision Marketing at Sharp UK. He drives a Volvo 850 Estate. So what does he think of it?
Well, it was the only car on the list that offered a combination of performance, lots of space, and also the safety element, because I've got a family and obviously they're a prime consideration.
After driving it for 18 months, what do you think? What do you like about the car?
I very much like the engine. It's a 2-litre 5-cylinder 20 valves, so it's got plenty of performance. And it's pretty unbustable, you know, you can get it right up the rev range, no problems.
Looking at the interior of the car, I mean, the first thing that strikes me is the amount of space, but also the gadgets that are everywhere. It's like a cockpit, there's sort of dials all over the place.
It's not as sophisticated as it looks, but all the controls are generally well laid out. One interesting feature is this track system here, which is a traction control. So if you're in the wet, slippy conditions or snow, what happens is if any of the wheels slip, it will automatically brake that wheel and transfer the drive to the other wheel, so that you always have the best opportunity of moving forward in slippy conditions.
Now Gary, you work for Sharp and they're a company that are really sort of on the cutting edge, quite a stylish company. Now let's face it, the Volvo doesn't really have the best image, does it?
I was extremely surprised at the prejudice against Volvo when I actually said I was going to select one. But the 850 is definitely a departure from Volvo's original staid image. And with this having 5 cylinders, 20 valves, Delta Link suspension, It's a very sporty car with excellent handling characteristics, and I think it's very understated, and that's what I like about the car.
Smaller than the 700 and 900 series, but only slightly less boxy, Volvo's 850 set new standards for the Swedish car maker. The 850 goes like no other Volvo you've ever seen. This car has it all: front-wheel drive, crisp handling, smooth ride, a silky 5-cylinder engine, and of course, safety. The driving environment is logically laid out, with neat features abound, and it goes without saying that the boot is the largest around in its class. Perhaps the chassis isn't as refined as a BMW, but it's the sporty T5 model with its 225 brake horsepower engine that tells us Volvo is changing its image. Volvo has come a long way since the dowdy days of the 700 series, and with this 850, it certainly is a Volvo with cred. Helen Fothergill is product control of Vision Group, and her company car is a Mercedes C180 Classic. So is it a classic?
It doesn't really have very much, as you can see. It has a fairly good radio. It doesn't have any sunroof, which, to be honest, I don't particularly mind.
So is there anything else that you're unhappy with in the car, anything that you'd change?
The only thing I found difficult getting used to was the well, it's not handbrake, it's a foot brake.
Helen, one thing that strikes me from being inside the car is how comfortable and smooth a ride it is. You must be happy with that.
Definitely, yes. It's a very secure car. It feels very, very strong and safe.
Have you noticed people treating you any differently, other road users, since you've been driving the Mercedes?
Probably a little bit more respect as a woman driver. You're allowed to be let in a queue of traffic and so on.
And what about the future when you come to change? Another Mercedes, or would you go for something different?
I think I'd go for another Mercedes. If I could afford anything, it would be maybe a top of the range with all the bits and pieces you don't get with the entry-level models.
Could have a word with the boss.
Yeah.
The C-Class is the smallest, cheapest and easily the best-selling car in the Mercedes-Benz range. Replacing the 190e at the end of 1993, the C is a more understandable model range, with 4 levels of trim: Classic, Esprit, Sport and Elegance, as well as a choice of 4 petrol and 2 diesel engines, and at the extreme, a very high-performance AMG model. The quality is all you would expect from a car carrying the pointed star, with the C-Class excelling in other areas too. Ride, noise levels and refinement particularly are equal, if not better than those of the Audi A4 or the BMW Series 3. Most drivers will be comfortable in the firm front seats, though they have to put up with a large steering wheel and, on many models, a minimum of features and instrumentation. Room in the back isn't great either, but if that's not a worry, the car will provide years of sterling service. And the fact is, nothing holds its value like a Mercedes C-Class. Andrew Cross from marketing drives a Rover 416 SLI. Would he buy it himself, or is it just another company car? Andrew, what made you choose a Rover for your company car?
I think the list which I was presented with was mainly diesel cars. There were 2 petrol cars, this one and the other one was a Cavalier, and of course the Cavalier is an obvious rep-mobile which I didn't particularly want to be seen in, so the choice was partly made for me. My previous company car was a Rover, and which I was quite happy with, and also it was British, and that was also part of the decision.
Supporting the Buy British campaign, I like that.
Well, somebody has to.
Now, you've had the car for almost 12 months. Have you encountered any problems with it? Is there anything you don't like about it?
Nothing major, possibly a couple of niggling things. I keep getting a static shock from it occasionally. Paint seems to scratch quite easily, but apart from that, nothing major.
So what do you like about it? What features do you think are good about the car?
Well, it's not a particularly inspiring car to drive. It's a company car at the end of the day. Having said that, it's very functional. It's for long distance motorway work. It's very comfortable.
I must say that you really don't sound excited by this car. It sounds like it's simply 4 wheels to get you from A to B.
That's exactly what it is, really. It's my own car. I haven't bought it. Didn't choose it from an endless list. So no, it doesn't particularly inspire me.
So what about the cabin? Is there enough room, do you think?
Well, there's not much room in the back for adults, so if you're going out with some friends, there isn't much room in the back there. But certainly in the front, there's plenty of leg room for myself.
It's okay, you've got the unlimited budget and the open blank chequebook, and you're buying a car just for you, for yourself. What would you buy?
possibly something totally unpractical, a two-seater convertible. I think the new Alphas are quite nice, the new Spider. Possibly for my own use, probably something like an Austin Healey 3000.
What a great choice. That for the weekends, and you can have this for the boring stuff during the week.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
Thanks.
Rover's 400 is a stylish, desirable car, but one with an identity crisis. Judging on specification alone, logic sees it as a rival for the Peugeot 306, Ford Escort and the like. But Rover see things differently, saying that the extra space and the prestige of Rover ownership pushes the 400 into the family car class, up against the Mondeo, Vectra and 406. The upper models even begin to encroach on the Rover 600 in terms of asking price. Having said that, it's a commendable effort from Rover, with the inside looking as classy as the outside. Rover uses light colours, wood and plastics that have a good quality feel to create a delightful driving environment. The controls are large and clear, and although the switches come from the Rover Honda parts bin, everything works well. Although it's not a big car, both the 1.4 and 1.6 are a delight to drive. The 1.4 is a great little engine, coupled to well-weighted power steering and high standards of ride and handling, with the 1.6 giving only marginal improved performance.
Well, out of those three, I'll have the keys to the Mercedes any time. Unfortunately, the best Granada can do, the good old Mondeo. Still, it beats walking.
Ginny Buckley out on the road with those company car users. Well, Mike Rutherford's joined me again. We've got reports from Paris next week, and you'll be there. Any predictions, Mike?
I can give you more than predictions. I've actually seen the Citroën exhibits that will be at the show, and there's a tremendous range of funky little cars, many of which...
Renault Espace as well, isn't there?
There's a new Renault Espace, which is a little bit disappointing, but there's more to that than meets the eye. There's something from Volvo, a new coupe, a nice funky little car from Fiat. We're going to be seeing, don't forget, the new Jaguar XK8, which will be driving in Britain soon, and the Americans will be there in force with the Chrysler Prowler, and that's something special. Awful lot of glamour as well, let's not forget that.
I'll have to stop you there, can't wait. Join us next week then here on Granada's Men and Motors channel for exclusive and full coverage from Paris, and I'll be joined by top dealers to discuss whether what's revealed this year at Paris and the NEC shows is really what the buyers want. We'll see you then.